I'm gonna keep it short and leave the stage to Martin. Hi, Martin.
Hello. Thank you, Aleph. So yeah, it's really exciting to have something that is completely new and actually also groundbreaking. And yeah, I just saw the video of Marcus when he presented it in Korea. But what we will do, we will not go so much in the let's say usual, but we will go in the very deep details on the scientific basics. So how does it actually work? Of course, I will tell all things around the topic too, but so how it really technically works. And that I think is really amazing because before we had microcurrent, we have magnetic fields, we have the Healy coil, we have already three things that basically interact with us. We have also the information field analysis and harmonization. So we have another one, and now we have the fifth element basically, and that's the HighWave, and that's a complete new level. I also have a presentation on the different levels, but this is not yet finished, so I hope it will finish today. But today, the scientifics of the Healy HighWave. So let's deep dive. So here you can see my screen. Yes, perfect. So the HighWave. So as you can see already in the screen, it's similar from the connecting mechanism to the Healy coil. So you simply plug on your Healy and then the device already is in motion. What is different to the Healy coil is, apart from the complete technical working mechanism, which we will see later, is that, of course, it's a little more difficult to connect the Healy to the HighWave because it's a variable on the wrist. And as we know, the wrist is quite moving in all kinds of directions, and sometimes we have fast movements also. So the Healy needs to stay in place all the time. So we basically made sure that the, let's say, construction of the HighWave ensures that your Healy is safe and in place all the time. This, of course, means that the connection needs a little more care, and yeah, but we will see that later. So, first of all, it's a groundbreaking variable, as I already said, because now you can basically use the frequencies of the Healy, so the frequencies that actually make a difference in the body, make a difference in your whole bioenergetic system, and apply them wirelessly, so you don't need any cables anymore, to the body through two electrode pads, basically. And those electrode pads are, yeah, in a special way that the signal actually doesn't go, yeah, on your skin or only through the electrodes. No, it basically passes through your whole system, so from head to toe, and actually makes it possible to, yeah, have the same frequency at the same time in the complete body, and also everywhere in the body. So not only on the skin or inside the body, no, everywhere on the body. And there's a nice video of Marcus where he shows how this actually works, or how we can measure it, because the developers that basically worked with us to make this product happen, they also constructed a prototype for measurement. So you can actually measure, on the one hand, the carrier frequency that we will see later, and you can also measure the frequency that the Healy basically generates at your head, at your toe, at your other wrist, so everywhere on the body. So this, of course, means that Healy HighWave enhances the way that frequencies are delivered. And it makes frequency technology even more powerful and efficient. So since you now can reach everywhere effortlessly, of course, you can also address very certain things in the body with the right frequency. Yeah, and we are using, as I already said, a carrier wave, and that makes the whole trick. So let's deep dive in how this product actually looks like. So it's worn around the wrist with very standard watch wristbands. It's also a 18 millimeter, so it's a standard, so you can easily exchange those if you need new ones, if you like a different style, and so on. Of course, those wristbands that we chose are biocompatible, so they are 100% safe. Same for the plastic, so the plastic material that we use is also biocompatible. And of course, the pads that you see here are out of biocompatible steel. So there's basically almost no nickel or something inside. You don't get steel, of course, without nickel, but this is the minimum amount that's possible. So there should be no reactions to the materials at all. This is one of the most important things that I made sure that we are having a very safe device. Now, how does it work? So what is really the deal behind the carrier frequency? So the carrier frequency is actually 5 megahertz, not exactly 5 megahertz. That's what we will see later. And this carrier frequency is created by the HighWave. So there's a circuit board on the HighWave that enables the generation of this 5 megahertz. How is it generated? By using the power of the Healy. So Healy is able to generate a voltage of 10 volt in a maximum. And that's also why you need at least 30, 35, 40% intensity, which equals 3 to 4 volt, to power the HighWave. So you need in the app the current mode high, and then you need at least 30 to 40% intensity and an IMF program or the special HighWave programs to enable the generation of this frequency, of the carrier frequency. So you basically power on the HighWave with 30% of intensity with the Healy. And what additionally is done, if the Healy, for example, generates a frequency of 100 Hertz, this 100 Hertz is modulated onto the 5 megahertz. So you basically change the 5 megahertz and basically put onto the 5 megahertz another frequency, or every frequency that the Healy actually generates, which is 0.1 hertz to 1 megahertz. So over 9 million different frequencies are generated with the Healy, and those can be modulated onto the 5 megahertz and then basically transported in the whole body. Now, why 5 megahertz? So we have a scientific study in a German university that's quite some time ago, and the result of this never published paper was it was a diploma thesis actually, and the result was okay. At around 5 megahertz, you have the optimal frequency to get through the body effortlessly. So there are certain frequencies that go into the body, there are certain frequencies that are reflected or just go a little into the body, and there are certain frequencies that go easily in the body and through the body. So you're basically creating an electromagnetic field in the whole body, or an electromagnetic wave through the whole body. And that's a really big difference. And the result of this study was that 5 megahertz basically, or of course a little spectrum, it's not only exactly 5 megahertz, is ideal to basically generate a signal which goes through the body. So it travels deeply through the biological tissue. And at the end of the day, of course, it reaches every cell. But the cell, I will have a little later a special slide on this one, because that's quite important. Now the pads are placed symmetrically on the wrist. Why are they placed symmetrically? Because of the symmetry. They can pass through, or not onto the body, but into the body. So this parallel arrangement makes it possible that the frequency actually goes into the body. So it actually can reach every cell. And then it flows basically like a wave through the whole body. Now, what is the scientific evidence? I mean, there's lots of other scientific papers, but just an example where you see, okay, in electrical impedance tomography, they are also using 5 to 10 megahertz to scan the internal structures of the body. And they are then imaged three-dimensionally. So you have a three-dimensional image using this frequency. Why? Because this frequency is ideal to pass through the body, so to get everywhere in the body. And that's, of course, what we want. Now, wait a second. Yeah, and the Healy HighWave uses a similar wave behavior as this electrical impedance tomography. So it transmits a signal along the natural conductivity of the body. So that's basically a simple law of nature, that there's a certain frequency that you can use to conduct basically into the body, to connect to the body in an optimal way. Now, about the cell. So what you can do is you can reach inside the cell using exactly this carrier frequency. What is the usual thing that happens? If a low frequency goes to the cell membrane acts as an insulator. So the frequency simply can't pass easily into the cell, or is reduced in the power. So it basically is not so powerful in the cell. Now, if you basically using 5 megahertz as a carrier frequency, this resistance drops drastically. So this means that you can now pass an information, which is the working frequency of the Healy, so the application frequency of the Healy, like we had before, 100 hertz. You can now pass through the cell and apply this frequency in the cell, in the DNA, in the mitochondria, and everyone knows the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, which is basically the energy plant of the cell. And there you can then inform this mitochondria with the right frequencies to stimulate it, for example. So this enables a whole lot of more options than we already have with the microcurrent, with the magnetic field, and of course with the vector potential of the Healy coil. So what we can do now, we can support change from within. So within the cell, within the body, actually where your whole energy production resides. So as you know, every cell is an in itself living organism, let's put it like that. You have basically natural thingies going in, so nutrition going into the cell through the cell membrane. We all know this from microcurrent. There's a cell membrane potential, and there are basically small gaps in the cell membrane where you can basically get things in and get things out. And that's why also the cell membrane voltage is so important, because you need to get the things in the cell outside the cell and the other way around. But the cell itself needs to be consistent. So it needs to be one closed organism that it actually can work. And of course, what you can do with this mechanism, you can also excrete things out of the cell. So things that you don't need anymore, basically toxins or waste. And yeah, this is something that you need to take into account. This small building block of our body, which is the cell, of course, makes a huge difference if it works in the right way. And that's, of course, what we are always striving for. Now, we didn't choose 5 megahertz exactly. We chose 4.97 megahertz as a carrier frequency. Why? Because this frequency is a mathematical harmonic. And this is basically inspired by the Pythagorean frequency model, which the researchers Gesing and Meyer came up with. So they basically looked in all harmonic frequencies and said, okay, those frequencies are harmonic frequencies. Let's test them and see if they have a positive effect. And what they basically found that this carrier frequency, or this frequency, which we are using as a carrier frequency, let's put it like that, that this frequency already has a harmonizing effect on the bioenergetic field. So we are basically constantly having a harmonizing effect and modulating on this positive frequency the application frequency of the Healy, which now can pass everywhere in the body where we need it. Now, to sum it up, the big picture is that the Healy HighWave amplifies, of course, Healy's frequency technology. So now the frequencies that we know that work, that we know through microcurrent or the Healy coil applications that have a positive and very nice effect. Now we can use this and amplify this effect, or maybe also have new effects that were not possible before, because now we can easily pass into the cell, can pass into the whole body area. And of course, what we do is we reach into the organs and into the cells of the organs. So we can really target with different frequencies whatever we want in the body. Now, what we also have is we have an activation of the internal communication and energy system. What does that mean? So we also know from microcurrent already, if you looked at the scientific basics video, for example, or I think I gave a webinar on this also, you see, or we know, that of course the communication is also based on frequency into in our body. So basically our body itself communicates between the cells or between basically different body parts also by different frequencies, by using frequencies. And of course, we can now influence this also in a positive way. So with such a very, very simple variable, which is just fitting on your wrist, you can have a whole body effect. And that's of course just the beginning, because we are releasing, as we will see, or as we already heard in the Mexico event and the Korea event today, also MindWave and CellWave programs. So it's 6 MindWave and 6 CellWave programs that we release with the device. And of course, we can later also bring more different frequency programs that actually fit exactly for the HighWave to basically optimally use the frequencies using a carrier wave. So I think, no, one thing I forgot, and that's the studies. So we are now started to do lots of placebo-controlled double-blinded studies. So now we're basically having a control group which uses a placebo, and the active group uses actually the program as we created it. And we did one study, and we are also conducting another study. And this was a double-blinded placebo-controlled study that has a significant effect shown, and also a significance that's more than 20%. Usually you say, okay, if you have like conventional medicine, you need at least 20% higher effect on the basically active group than on the placebo group to basically claim, okay, I actually have an effect. And that we basically had in a very nice study with the first prototypes. So the prototypes were of course fully functional, but not so good looking as the final product. And there we basically found out, okay, we have an effect that's beyond placebo. And Marcus would say, okay, but placebo already is a very, very powerful effect. And that's also something that I wanted to add at the end, because I had a long discussion about this with Marcus, because uh, what are we experiencing in our lives? We're experiencing lots of challenges, and we overcome those challenges, and we have every from now and then some diseases, and we overcome those diseases usually, but we didn't overcome them usually because someone, yeah, cured us. It's always our inner healer. So it's the will at the first place to get better, to overcome the disease, to develop out of the disease, so to learn also something out of the disease, because usually diseases are something that yeah, brings you to the next level of your journey, of your personal journey. That I see with my small daughter. She's now 4 years old, and she's like, sometimes she's sick, and after she gets better, I don't know, she started talking, or she started moving in a different way, or so it's always a growth process, such a disease, as I experienced it with her. And the important thing is the placebo effect. What is the placebo effect? The placebo effect is basically our inner healer that says, okay, yeah, I want to get better. I want to overcome this disease. I want to overcome whatever challenge is there. And I basically stimulate all my self-healing energy and get it forward. So that's actually what we call in science, or in regular or conventional science, that's the placebo effect. That's our self-healing effect. Because if you have a placebo effect, what does it mean? It means you got better even if there was nothing that should have gotten you better. And the placebo effect is really powerful. So people are basically yeah, using it to stimulate all kinds of positive things. And now the important thing for HighWave, we have a positive effect on the placebo side, because we are also basically stimulating with the right frequencies that we are self-healing. And now we have also a physical effect because of this carrier wave in the whole body that goes beyond the placebo effect. So we have the combination of both at the end of the day. So I think I covered everything. And yeah, this is the first time I ever yeah, hold this presentation in a yeah, open community. So yeah, you are the first ones to experience it. And thank you for your attention. And yeah, I think HighWave bridges science and holistic health in a very, very nice way. Back to Aleph.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I believe it's really an informative breaking it is, as you said, and how safe also it is to use, because we saw the, sorry. I hope that you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, it's stuck on AirPods. Yeah. And we saw also the logic behind. So we are, I think all the community that hears the training today is kind of convinced. And yeah, I really like your thoughts also about the placebo effect, because it's so, kind of different topic that everybody can have some different opinions about that. But I like your, attitude about that. Anyways, I believe we still have time to get some questions, if any. Um, you can drop some questions in the chat, dear participants. Of course, everybody is now currently maybe, trying to digest all the information firstly, because this is the first time, as you said, they heard all the informations. But I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that maybe over time, some questions will occur maybe in their mind or maybe in next sessions. But
Yeah, I saw one question. So, what's the difference between the coil? And that's a very good question. I have an own webinar prepared on this topic, but maybe just a short, yeah, let's say a short insight. So, at the end of the day, you always need to look at the level you're applying something. I always bring the nice example with the immune system. You know, a walk in the park or in the woods basically boosts your immune system, the fresh air and everything. And now you can say, okay, I go walk in the park or in the woods once a day, and then I eat lots of chocolate, drink lots of cola, stay up very late, and then you usually wake up in the morning and you don't feel so good. So yeah, your immune system is a little suppressed and so on. So maybe it's not only a walk in the park. Maybe it's a walk in the park. Maybe it's a good food, maybe it's decent sleep, maybe it's decent relaxation phases, and so on. So you have lots of levels that contribute to a boost of the immune system. And the same we have also with Healy. So this works as a synergetic system. So once you have the microcurrent and you using basically the microcurrent, which is on the same level as the currents that going already through our body. So it's basically a carrier medium that we use that the body understands. So we're talking into the language of the body to the body through frequencies, using microcurrent as a carrier wave, you could also say. Now with the Healy coil, we are using two magnetic fields that cancel each other out. So what is left is the simple vector potential. So what we're using is basically, yeah, let's say, the remaining information or the pure information, and we basically bringing this pure information and coupling it into the bioenergetic field. And that's basically how you basically get the frequency that is basically analyzed by the Healy for you right now through the vector potential into the bioenergetic field. And the bioenergetic field, as we know, is quantum entangled with the body, is quantum entangled with your information field. So you're basically using this information to inform your bioenergetic field in a positive way, in the right way, and that's basically the effect that you have. And you can, of course, and that's the most important part of this whole explanation, combine those. So boost your bioenergetic field, boost yourself on the microcurrent level, boost yourself on the electromagnetic wave level with the HighWave, and of course with the Mach Healy you have the same. You have the counterpart of the microcurrent. The microcurrent is basically something that communicates, yeah, through your let's say yeah, wiring, because usually if there's current it goes through a wire, but if the magnetic field is also created through every wire you have, so if you have switch on your lamp or something, then a current is flowing and a magnetic field is automatically generated around this basically cable that you have. And the same happens in the body also. So around your yeah, let's say heart, for example, you have a huge magnetic field. And now we're basically reversing this. So we're using the Mach Healy to apply a magnetic field onto the body to have to use this effect to also communicate to the body. And what are we now doing? We also using basically creating small currents in the body in the right way with the right frequency. Yeah, everyone knows that that has an inductive heater. So you put on a pen, there's a magnetic field, there's a current flowing in the pen, and then it gets hot. So basically, there you could also apply heat. You can apply a magnetic field, but the same effect just reversed. So I hope this somehow makes it understandable.
Thank you, Martin. And some other questions are coming in the chat box. I can moderate them if you're okay with that. And another question, that will we be able to use all the devices we have with this bracelet? You know,
Yes,
not
there's only
what.
only one. That's also maybe a very important point, because why is it so, let's say, difficult to connect? And that's the reason, because we have now the one, two, three, four, fifth generation, I think, of the Healy housing. So we originally the Healy was basically created to have a quantity of 10,000 devices. Now we have more than 500,000 devices, So we basically revised the housing in the in between because we couldn't produce so much, so we needed a new mold and so on and so on. And through this, we had basically all kinds of modifications also. And the HighWave makes it possible to connect all Healys except of the first generation. So the
Mm.
older ones that have this triangle where you can put through something, basically a cord or something, those are not able to connect to the HighWave. All other versions are able to connect.
Okay, good to know. This is very important, as you said. Okay. What are the program groups like cell wave and mind wave target only works with high wave device?
So they are optimized for high wave. So we chose special frequencies that basically are optimal to use with a carrier frequency. And as the name intends, the mind wave programs are basically having an effect on your or mind of on your let's say yeah, alpha waves, beta waves, and so on. So you're basically influencing concentration. For example, we also have this double-blinded placebo-controlled study on concentration. And the cell wave programs, as the name suggests, it's on the cell level. And since we can now reach the cell, of course, it makes sense to use the right frequency to influence the cell in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And maybe the answer to the
Yeah.
last question, of
Mm.
course, you can also use those programs with wrist electrodes, but of course, they are not optimal.
Okay. Okay, so that brings us to another question, that cell and mind wave, we get them on Obsidian as well? As far as I know, no, for
That's a
now.
good
But yeah.
question.
Yeah.
I was in heavy discussions on this thing. For now, no, but of course, we will see what happens because we need to,
Mm.
yeah, be mindful about the Obsidian Club.
Okay, 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 good. And some other questions. Is there any sales plan for high wave color in black?
Actually, we are looking into the sales numbers, and if the
Mm-hmm.
sales numbers are developing as they developed in Mexico, I think we will have a black version for sure.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, okay. Do you get you could one day make a graphic to see the imbrication and complementarity of all these systems?
Yes, actually, that's a presentation that should be finished today.
Okay.
So it was quite a heavy task to bring this, to boil this down to an understandable level that actually is presentable. I hope I was successful, and we will see in the Munich event because I think there might be the first time I will present it.
Okay, maybe then in Izmir event
Yes, yes,
after that.
then I would, yeah.
Okay. How do you recommend a new client to start? For example, is it better to recommend HighWave plus Healy Pro together for a new one?
That's a very good question. I mean, at the end of the day, it always depends on how much money you have, basically, and how much you want to spend in the first time. Uh,
Mhm,
but from a convenience point of view, and from a, let's say, whole body penetration point of view or effect point of view, I definitely would recommend to start with the HighWave because
mhm,
the best device in the world is worth nothing if you don't use it. And the HighWave
mhm.
makes it so easy that even Marcus, he's like so in so many topics that he usually forgets to take his Healy and he really needs to, or it's not loaded and so on, and then he doesn't use it. But since he has the HighWave, you always see him running around with the HighWave and using it permanently. And I think that's the most important thing. If you have such a device and if you have such a power, if you then don't use it, it would be a pity. So with the HighWave, the usage I think will be much higher.
That's another question. Will the coil be less efficient than bracelet? Then what we're gonna do?
I mean,
Okay.
that's on the levels that I tried to explain before,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, there's not, yeah, the coil is more efficient, or the high wave is more
Mm,
efficient, or the bracelets are more efficient. They
mm,
all combined are boosting your holistic health much
Uh-huh.
more than one of them would. And of course,
Mhm.
every technology has a different way of connecting to your system and has a
Mhm.
different, let's say, frequency spectrum that works more efficient with this technology. You know what I mean? So it's a very, I could, I think, talk 10 hours about that. But yeah,
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
use it synergetically, you will have the best effects for sure.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And another question from Maria Carla. Programs relating to HighWave already appears in the Blue program analysis application. Yes, this is a question
Yes,
that
yes,
we,
yes.
yeah, we,
Yeah, yeah.
we, we have been getting this week. Which programs can we use instead of the Healy Pink application in countries where HighWave is not available yet? Alternatively, can we use the Wellbeing Body, Soul, and Mind program group?
Which program is
Is,
instead of the where the HighWave is not available to purchase? I mean, that's not really a, uh, yeah, thing because it will be available very soon. So,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah, it's a global project,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, yeah, we will launch it globally. The only downside is that the sales numbers are so high that we have a really challenge to produce so fast.
supply
So
chain
yeah,
issues,
yeah, yeah.
right?
That's actually more than a challenge that I thought. But yeah, I mean, it's a let's say a luxurious problem, like you call it in German,
Yeah,
Luxusproblem. So there are worse things than selling too much.
yeah, yeah. It's a good issue, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Are the Healy Mindwave programs available on Healy Pro? I think
No, no,
no,
no.
they're just
They're in the
separately.
HighWave bundle
Yeah.
included. Yeah.
Yeah, only HighWave bundle included. Okay. So we will, of course, we will give more and more informations,
Yes.
during the launch in Munich, after the event, maybe virtually, and then after the local launch in Turkey. So the all the informations, including the price, will be given by then. But okay, there's another question. Okay, from Beste. Sorry if I missed that part because I attended the meet. Okay, will we be able to use each and every one of the pink programs with the new gadgets? I think new device or only 12 programs it comes with? No, we will use everything,
Yeah,
right?
every IMF program actually.
IMF programs
Yeah,
that
because
we yeah.
exactly
Mm-hmm,
because the normal microcurrent programs do not work with the HighWave because you need
mm-hmm,
voltage control, and the
yeah.
normal microcurrent programs are uh, current controlled, so they simply don't
Mm-hmm.
work.
So
But
basically the programs that we can also use with coils, this
exactly,
is this is the logic, right?
exactly,
So the coil
90%
kind
or
of a
plus. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Are there any contradictions to use high wave?
Contraindications, I think.
Contraindications,
I
I
think
think,
that's
yeah.
what is meant.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
are similar. So also, but I'm not knowing them by heart. But there's an IFU, and there they are basically mentioned, and we have
Mm,
an FAQ to that. So I could
mm,
look them up. I mean, it's not so difficult. Give me a second.
okay, we
That's the
can
good side if you know where everything is. You can
mm.
also come up with it quite fast. Here we go. So it's point two. I already remembered that. For adults, please note the device is not intended for pregnant women, persons with epilepsy, heart disease, or those with a pacemaker. So that are the contraindications.
Yeah, it's good to know so that we will try to avoid to use with the pregnancy and
Yeah, yeah.
the
I mean,
yeah,
this
the
is
people.
this is
Mm,
mainly a safety matter. There
yeah.
is no data that it can harm, but
Uh-huh.
there's also no data, not enough data that it doesn't harm. So
Uh-huh.
just to be safe, we basically
Yeah. Yeah.
included that. I also posted it in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really, it was a really good session. And thanks also to the participants for being here with us today. Remember that our masterclass trainings always being uploaded in our YouTube Learning Hub channel. Please check it out if you didn't yet. And you can check from there as well with your own native language subtitles and everything. So yeah, until next time. Take care of yourselves and have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.